everyone, it's Terrence Branley with the Grow IT podcast, and today I am grateful to have Ismael Larrosa from Capicua. Did I pronounce both those right?
Amazing. Yeah, correct.
All right. He's the founder and director of Capicua. They offer a full cycle user experience design driven development process, and we're excited to have you today to talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Terrence, for the invitation.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your, both your background and tell us about your entrepreneurial journey as well.
Sure. I went to college. I studied graphic design, and right out of college, I started working for an out of home billboard agency. So we were doing like billboards. And after 4 or 5 months working there, I started working at TCS, which is Data Consultancy Services, a huge um, IT company, but has much more than IT. The company is from India, but they have a delivery center in Uruguay. And we were the first batch. I say we because we were like a batch of 25 designers. That was the first time that TCS was actually outsourcing graphic design. And we worked for a client in the US doing graphic design there. And because of that, they flew me to New York once, and I fell in love with New York and said, why don't I give it a try to have my own company? I have had a company before when I was 19, and it was like it was seven of us, but we couldn't deliver anything because we were like master of none, and we were planning to have like a company. So Capicua is actually my second company.
Okay.
So yeah, and I founded Capicua in 2010 with Mauricio Nicoletti, who is still on the company, and a college friend of mine, Andrea, and we started that company in 2010. We started as a design shop, doing what was called strategic design, meaning like if you have like a small to medium business here in the US, we were applying the same methodology we learned at TCS of how you can manage like a global brand. And back then it was like many small to medium businesses wanted to have a digital presence. Facebook was on the rise there then, and we started doing small websites for those clients. And with websites came the development of those, and some of those websites were for SaaS, and so we also did the product for those clients and so on. So that was like a rabbit hole into how we end up being like a UX driven full cycle software development company. We never lost the UX part because everything we do it with a design thinking perspective. And we apply that as a bridge in order to collaborate with our clients on a field that it's equal. Anyone can understand design. You don't need to have like a specific degree in order to understand how you want things to be done. Um, Whereas when you get into software development, you need to understand software development in order to influence the result, right? So that's why we do everything with a UX mindset and a UX framework. And then when we have to develop it, we also keep that in mind. And what essentially it means is that we never forget that the product we are designing is for a user. Design and development is for a user, and we always keep that into account for the decision making of the products we help build.
That's pretty unique. And that probably gives you an edge, a different edge or a different USP at the very least in the marketplace, right? Because coming from a design, background and having that is, because software design, or software creation, right, is typically more of like engineering based, right?
Correct.
Like from point A to B and not necessarily considering the user or the user interface or the user experience, where you guys are coming from a design background and always having that in mind when developing the software.
Correct. Yes. And as far as I know, we are the only design-owned, design-operated software development company. So we of the ones that we compete against, right? So
Yeah,
anyway,
I don't know if I don't even know if I've ever heard of anyone
yeah,
doing that.
yeah. So that's a I will say a competitive advantage. Um, Experience and design, especially over the last, I'll say, 5 to 10 years, have become much more strategic. Before, design was, oh, you make this beautiful, now you make this usable, right? And the reason why you go from beauty to usage is because companies have now the maturity to understand that if people don't understand the product that you're building, if they don't love the product that you're building, it doesn't matter what you're building. It can be an amazing solution, but if no one can relate that into multiple levels from rational to emotion, it will not be usable, right? So that's why design has to be at the forefront of the product development, because it's where it's a short amount of difference in between humans, as we are all users at different levels, and the product, right? That's the interface should always be design led. That's
I think the closest I would come to that is probably Apple, right? Even though Apple is developing product, but I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and that's kind of where they were saying that kind of things have strayed afar, since Steve Jobs has passed, and that he took his was a design first, right? And even the first iPods, and then the iPhone was like it was built to be intuitive. So if you see an app logo for an app icon for a compass, you knew to press it, right? Because you could see it was a compass and to go into it and then be like, oh, okay, I see how this works. And so uh, that's pretty imperative, especially when you're talking about new adoption, right? Or an adoption rate, right? That if something's not you know, uh, easy to use or intuitive, right? Doesn't matter how great your
right.
software is.
And it's much more difficult to correct something that wasn't built with intuition and emotion from the beginning afterwards, right? This is like trying to correct the Tower of Pizza, right? So it's like it's better to build it straight once and for all, and that'll be it. And then you can find your way, right? But you're always trying to find the, the least amount of friction for your user, and the way to do that, it has to be empathic to what your customers are trying to do, right? And if you don't understand your customers up until an emotional level, um, I'm not saying that everything has to be led with emotion, but emotion has to be taken into account into the experience.
So let's talk about your clients and what are the challenges that they're experiencing. What problems are you solving for them, or what are they trying to? What is their kind of outcome? And probably some of it with that design aspect in mind. But maybe talk a little bit about how you're helping your clients, achieve whatever it is that their goals
Right.
are.
Perfect. Yeah. So the first step is to understand what they're trying to achieve, right? That's basic understanding of where you want to go, right? And then we start helping the client to understand two things. The first one, what do we mean by design thinking? It's like we're going to prototype fast. We're going to measure our prototypes against some sort of feedback that has to be at least a little bit unbiased, right? We have to try to find feedback that is unbiased, that it's not what we think or what the client thinks, but what we're trying to find is the truth in the user that we're trying um, to connect with and change the behavior, right? Because we are also in the behavioral change business, which is probably some of our users are already using a competitor, right? And we need to understand the competitive landscape of our client in order to deliver a better experience, right? So it's strategic from the go, and it's accountable from the go. So the client learns how to build this design thinking process. It's like opening a dimension of thinking, right? Thinking like a designer. It's something that we help our clients do. And then when we pivot to the development side, it's like, okay, we're going to do this in cycles, which in development words called sprints, and we're going to iterate and perfect and reduce friction on every cycle on different levels, right? And that's what you do when you are developing software, right? You're trying to reduce the friction so your users that you are trying to serve use your product with more ease. So you increase adoption, you increase stickiness of the product, right? People will use your product more if you are applying those principles, and you will create like a framework to understand how you can improve, right? Because it's like, okay, we build this based on these principles. Now we have like the levers of the dashboard into from the operational process in order how to influence change, or for example build another module for that specific product. Okay, now we have internally, for example, from a client perspective, they now internally learn how to think like a designer, right? That's I will say like one of the biggest I'm more proud of as a founder of a company, that I can help see the world through the designer side to my clients. Of course, building the products it's a lot of fun, and we build products that do create an impact. But helping clients open that dimension internally, I think that's one of the things I'm more proud of. I don't know if I have answered your question.
Yeah, and so let's tie that into, let's call it success story, right? Like, people love to hear about success stories, right? And the things that kind of help people understand, right? The importance of helping solve those challenges and issues and whatnot. But really, from the client's perspective, so much the same way you talk about designing for the user's perspective, from your client's perspective, how do they view working with you and the problems that you help them solve, or the challenges, how do they view that as a success? Maybe talk about some of the success stories from their
Right.
standpoint.
I'll talk about one that is it's pretty recent. It's so it we help. This is a 25-year-old nonprofit, and it's a nonprofit that help kids with a physical a sport. No.
Disabilities.
Sorry. It's a PE program, physical education program. Right? Before it was pen and paper. Literally, they were using sheets, and they were using paper in order to track how many miles kids run throughout the year, right? And they
Mm.
had a goal, and they created like certificates uh, and a lot of incentives for kids to run. And that it's in Texas. The the nonprofit is called Marathon Kids. Now they have grown a little bit. And when we came to we came to collaborate with them, they were in a pen and paper process, right? And they were a 25-year-old nonprofit, right? And when we start creating the project, we help them start to visualize how to build this from a design perspective, from a design thinking perspective, and they internalize that in their own processes as well. So they start understanding how they could, not just for the product that we were developing, how they could start using those design thinking strategies for other things. For example, one of them, it's how do we monetize this, right? Because it was like because it was a nonprofit, how do you start shifting that into being more like a SaaS product, right? And you understanding that you are a 25-year-old company, but you can also have this leg, this division that it's more like a startup, right? So we help them. This is a project that took probably 2 years to develop, and yeah, and I'm very glad, I'm very proud of the project as well, and I'm very glad to hear the feedback after a couple of years that we finished the project, how they were grateful about the change of perspective that we were able to um, help them view, right? So that's
What were they most grateful about? Moving kind of the digital transformation, moving from pen and paper, or from having kind of, I don't know if it was, if additional revenue stream is the right way to put it, even though it's a nonprofit, it doesn't necessarily, they're not trying to drive revenue, because that just goes back into the whole purpose of the driving, method for the nonprofit itself. But
So I think the not because I think this is feedback I received lately from now the VP of technology of Marathon Kids is that they like the relationship of how we could help them with strategy on the design level. And for sure we left them with a product that works, that it's stable, that they can scale, and they have been maintaining it. So that's good. But also how there is something else that they can do when they have challenges on a company, right? And design thinking challenges don't only apply to software development. They can apply to anything that you are trying to solve, right? um, so I think they enjoy the collaboration based on that. They were left with a product that was scalable, and we're also left with like an inception of how you can do things differently at the company organizational level.
All right, so let's talk about growth initiatives. You've have your start from your band of seven, where you said there's a master of none, to now been running Capicua since 2010, I believe. Talk about some of the challenges that you've encountered, and what you see in terms of the areas that are most challenging in terms of growing your own firm.
Right. So one small detail: the band of seven was a previous company I owned or I created when I was
Yeah.
19. When we started Capicua, we started with three people. In a year, we were like 8 or 9, but that's a small caveat. So
Sorry if I understood that. I probably, the way I said it,
right.
you're right, Ismail. It probably made it sound like Capicua originated from the Band of Seven, but I meant from when you were 19 and starting that. But you're correct. So
So growth, growing is it's painful. You have everyone wants to grow, but sometimes you don't realize how much endurance you have to grow. Right. We have been growing steadily at Capicua for the last, I would say, 7 years or so. Last 2 years, we were recognized by Inc. 5000 to be. Last year, we were in position 900. This year, we are in 1600. So growing is painful in that sense, right? And you have to be emotionally prepared for growing. Sometimes you're in the middle of the battle and you don't recognize where you are, and you are growing and everything goes well. And I think you have that extra energy boost of adrenaline that you're growing, right? But you also, and at least what we did when we were growing, it's like, okay, but we have to grow with a sense, right? We can grow like exponentially and grow our divisions everywhere. So while we were growing, we were also trying to grow on a direction, right? On a specific direction. So we were having more projects, more challenges, more stuff. But one of the things we did, for example, is at the tech level, we want to be on a be experts on a very specific tech stack, right? So we before we were what's called agnostic, technology agnostic. I'll say like 8 years, 8 years ago, but we were transitioning into a more defined tech stack. That tech stack is React, Node, TypeScript, Python, right? Next, and what helped us was like as we were growing our team. Whenever we have a project that ended, we could the development team that we have, we could easily place them on a different project, right? That wasn't the same tech stack. So we were continually growing on the same direction. If you don't do that, or the experience that I have with not doing that is that you grow, and sometimes you have the pain of having people with having people unallocated, that they are on a bench with other project, and that's not beneficial for the team member. That's not beneficial for the company. That's not beneficial for the company as understanding that we need to have like a strategic decision into how people transit the time that they are at the company as a development cycle, right? They need to start on one point and develop themselves up, right? So that's one of the reasons why. we took that decision. And the second decision that we took was, okay, perfect. We now are constrained on a tech stack. We now need to constrain ourselves in specific industries, right? Because that will help us know the pains and know the challenges that those industries have, and we will be able to apply our knowledge of those pains and our technical knowledge more effectively. So we decided, I would say, 4 years ago, that we are going to focus on FinTech, EdTech, healthcare. Those are heavy regulated industries, and we
Mm-hmm.
are trying to continue on that path of how we are helping those companies succeed.
I want to say that's something that I reiterate to folks over and over when it comes to the strategic marketing standpoint, and it's hard too because a lot of professional services, IT firms, um, you know, as you mentioned, having people on the bench is no good for anybody. And when you're used to growing your business, your firm, getting referrals and word of mouth and network leads, it's hard. You kind of take whatever deal flow comes in the door, and that it it hinders you in a way because it doesn't allow you to become experts in certain industries. Which, let's talk about the benefit of that. The benefit of that is that, to your point, right, you're able to kind of take repeated successes in specific industries, whether it's fintech or edtech or healthcare, and apply those to the firms that are there. So it's delivering the client a better offering, better results, and then from a business standpoint, from your firm standpoint, it's more profitable for you. And so it feeds in itself. I always look for those win-wins, right? In terms of like, hey, what's going to deliver the best, client results, and also still serve, me as a business owner. And so I applaud you for that, because it's hard, right? Because, a lot of times it's not easy to turn business that may be coming in from a referral, if it's not fitting into, your focus niche. But ultimately, that's what's going to drive the best results, both for you and for your clients. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
totally. Yeah, yeah. That's a reason why clients hire management consulting companies and have a lot of experience in one specific industry, right? So if you are looking for finance, maybe you call one of the big five, and you have your pick, right? You want one of them, right? To whatever challenge you're having at that time, right? So yeah, that's we're trying to apply a little bit of that into the design and development services.
And you took that approach. You started taking that approach 3 or 4 years ago.
I would say 5 years, 4 to 5 years ago. The reason for that was like, and it's a process, right? Not like 5 years ago we start to say, no, we're not going to do anything that doesn't fall in these three buckets. It's like we're focusing on those, and then you have satellites that you are helping or you're collaborating with, but your decision is to go in one direction, and that's the direction we're going right now. Or we have been going for the last years.
As a professional services firm, I would bet that your most valuable asset is your people,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Is that helped with in focusing in certain specific niches? Has that helped from a recruiting standpoint, recruiting, hiring, training, managing standpoint? Has that helped?
Yeah, it helps because what I was mentioning, we have career plans at Capicua, and the developer or the designer, the manager, QA, whatever, they see themselves on a trajectory path, regardless of in which project they are. They are more interested into having their career see a development, and probably that will happen if you're a developer from a technical perspective. You want to be an expert into one core technology. We are always at the forefront of whatever is new from a technology perspective on that tech stack. For example, over the last 2 years, we incorporated Python, right? Why Python? Because we were seeing the machine learning turning into generative AI, and generative AI being much more democratized, um, a much more democratized way to apply machine learning into products, right? And that's why we invested into helping and training and our team members to include now Python to be able to handle large language models and all that stuff. So yeah, that's why we chose to do it that way.
Well, you must have been also reading my mind because that's really the next direction of the question I was going to ask you. I used to ask what were the coming trends in IT that business should be aware of, but it's AI just dominates everything now, right? Whether it's generative AI, LLMs, large language models. And I think you have an interesting perspective both in how it affects the design side of your business, right? How it does or doesn't, as well as the software development side. So I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts not only on where it is today in both of those sides of the business. Where do you think it's going?
Right, perfect. So first and foremost, and this is my position towards AI. I believe AI is a tool, right? Or the tools that come with AI are tools, right? So however you use the tool is the result that you're going to have, right? Imagine like they give me a basketball to me and a hoop, and probably I'm not going to be as effective as Tim Curry, even if I am powered by AI, right? So, um, so technology,
That would be
yeah,
magical.
right. So imagine being yourself plus AI equals Tim Curry. That's not going to happen, right? So technology is a tool that helps improve productivity to a certain degree, right? Like every tool, it comes to it exhausts its benefits to a certain degree. But AI offers a possibility to create products that are much more um, hyper focused and hyper centric in the user, right? We are working with companies, for example, that they have like if you have a product, the, you build a product for whatever user it's using it, not for any specific user. I think AI will help to tailor products to probably a one-to-one use case. So how you see the product and what information the product brings, it's different to you and me. One of the things that one of the things I see the future of products are is TikTok, right? For sure, TikTok has the same UI, the same experience for you and me, but the algorithm tailors 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 it so well for me and for you that your experience is completely different to the ones I have with the same UI. So what I think will happen in the future is products will have probably the same UI, but so much understanding of what the user is doing with the app that the content and the products that you are going to use with it are going to be different. Now, that TikTok is a B2C product, right? Imagine taking that to a B2B world, which is our world.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have different users with different degrees of levels of data access or different levels of what they can do on the platform, so and different perspectives on how they do things inside of your product, then you can help the product evolve more in an organic way towards those specific needs. That's how I see AI will help products. It's going to be another layer. It's a layer of like customer support or customer experience applied to products. It will help, and we have been using AI from a product development perspective. We have been using GitHub Copilot for many years now, and it helps, but it's not a magic bullet, right? It's not like developers are going to create an app command, and the app is going to be created. That's not going to happen because at the end of it, the again, I'm going back to the first ideas that we were discussing. It's like you need to understand your customer from an emotional perspective, right? If you lose track of who you're building for, even if you build faster, you're going to build something that's unusable for that user. So AI, I think it's an opportunity as well from understanding and creating a bridge into understanding your users and your customers and your collaborators, right?
Can I ask you like an example? Like meaning, so like as you're sitting here talking and you're talking about your offering, right? That is in fintech and edtech and healthcare, right? And if you picture in healthcare, let's say a nurse who's utilizing your client software, but you have, someone in fintech who might be a CPA, right? Those are two totally different people, right?
That-
And do you see AI as being a layer of a tool that can then help, you know create, or that whether it's creating the software or like a layer on top of it that makes it easier for the nurse to use it for those purposes and differ from the CPA who's in fintech to use it? Like, how, maybe talk the dumb guy through that, maybe how that might work.
all right, let's try to build upon that example. So the system should be smart enough to understand that you are a nurse and you're a CPA, regardless of the user, right? So far, systems understand who is who, but just to give access to the information that they're supposed to have access, right? So that's what products do right now, right? You have a user and password, and then you get in, and you will get into whatever you are supposed to get in based on conditions that were set before you get got into the platform. But the system doesn't understand you typically beyond trying to YouTube, for example, e-commerce sites. They want you to keep clicking and keep buying, but B2B products are different, right? They are more for focused on productivity and operations. So imagine that you are a nurse and you will want to see first and foremost what is important to you, right? At that moment in time. The information has some context that the user has to put into play in order to use the product. But the context of the information could pop up and say, hey, you have two meetings in 30 minutes. Probably the nurse did know that, but maybe she didn't. Or maybe she wasn't supposed to have those two meetings. But the system alerted her that, hey, you are supposed to be here. You are not probably geolocated on the spot that you're supposed to be. It's a guide, right? It's more like a guidance that AI can help because it's noticing that something is off, right? The person is, for example, on a different place or should be on a meeting in 2 minutes, and maybe she didn't realize it because she didn't click on where she has to see the meetings, for example. That will be for the nurse. The CPA will want to learn, for example, what is important to them in the sense of finance, right? And so the system should be able to tell the CPA alerts, right? Hey, based on last quarter, we should be here in terms of invoicing, but these are all the invoices that, for example, have not been closed yet. What happened? So it will offer help to prompt you, to guide you, to nudge you in the right direction or the direction that you supposed to be using the product, like an assistant, right? Like ChatGPT, but embedded into a product, but understanding the problem that you're facing as the user of that product. That I think is the future of AI.
It's going to be incredible to see what does transpire, and even on the design side of things. But I agree with you, and that's what seems to be the common thread when I have these conversations, is that AI is a tool,
The
right?
tool.
It is a tool. Think of it just like any other tool that you utilize in your business or your life. It's just a potentially exponentially, powerful tool.
Right. But it's a tool that creates a lot of opportunity, right? Because it democratized, for example, access to technology and to things that and service layers that we couldn't do before. Before, if you wanted to use a model like a language model, you needed machine learning specialists, data science specialists, probably cloud specialists in order just to have the model running on the cloud, right? Now it's like you just install it in your repo and you're using it, right? That democratization is going to create an impact, right? A huge impact in the sense of how we can tailor needs and how we can help those needs to be satisfied at the level that we couldn't do that before. Not just from a technical perspective because it wasn't feasible, but from a human perspective, understanding how we can help you better to solve this issue, right? That will be in the mind of someone that's trying to build a product for a specific use case and a specific challenge. How we can do it faster, and that AI will help us a lot in order to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I encourage people, even that are listening, just to get their hands on, even if it's as basic as a Grok or Copilot or ChatGPT, whatever it may be. Right, your choice, your tool, but to start getting your hands in it, to have an understanding of what it's capable of, is kind of the first step. Um, as we switch gears and kind of wrap things up here, what can you walk us through what it looks like through the path of what a new client, or like a prospect that signs on with you guys or comes to you guys for help? Walk us through that process of what a new client takes, in working with Capicua.
Sure. The first stage will be like, or first phase will be like a consulting, understanding you, your organization, your problem. That will be the first phase, to understand the problem and to be able to express that on a way that we both understand, right? Both companies understand. Like we can create, okay, this is where what we're trying to do. This is where we're trying to go. These are the opportunities that we see. Perfect. That's the first phase, the consulting phase. After that phase, we now have a defined problem, right? And it's very important to start with a defined problem, because if you don't define your problem well, you can design that. You can put a face to that. And the first part will be putting a face to the problem. And the face will be a UX and UI phase, which will translate the problem, understanding the industry, understanding the competitors, and understanding what else has been done elsewhere that we can import as a best practice to this problem, into this UI UX phase. What you will end up with is like, okay, now I have understood my problem. Now I have a solution. We have created this bridge in order to, from problem to solution, that it's a UI UX phase, which is most of the projects have like a what it's called a clickable wireframe. It's a prototype that you can click and understand and test with users, right? Or prospective users that you will want this product to um, affect their lives and help them, right? And once you finish that phase, then you have understood the feedback of your possible customers. Then you understand if the problem is well defined and the solution is well defined, and you apply the feedback to that solution. And that's the first um, time that you should go to develop something, because you understand 100% of the scope, and you understand 100% of the problem. And that's the third phase, will be the development phase, where with a defined problem, a defined solution, you start creating what will be the final product, right? And you create that using sprints, right? We help the clients to navigate through all that. It's a white glove. We handhold the clients through all that process. Clients vary on how much technical they are and how much involved they are in the projects, because sometimes that's not their only occupation. So we
Mm-hmm.
help them to continue with their businesses, but also keep them accountable of what we're building. So it reflects the nature of what we are trying to accomplish. And after the development phase, we deliver the product to the client, and then we can continue with a maintenance model, or that's that's the end of it. That's how we collaborate.
Pretty cool. Well, listen, if a business owner or executive is watching, today and wants to know how to get a hold of you, where they can learn more about Capicua, what social media platforms they can follow you on, this is your chance to plug them
All
all.
right, thank you. So I will make it simple. Go to our website. It's Capicua, CAPICUA.com, and you will find everything that you need there. You will have our blog. You will have our projects, the showcase of projects that we worked before, our social media, and all that stuff. And I think that will be the best way to get in touch.
I know you're on LinkedIn too. There's probably a link on it, but we'll put that in the show notes here, along with the URL for capicua.com. So,
Thank you.
but Ismail, I'm really grateful to have you on today, and thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you, Terrence. Likewise.